Imagine for a second that you've been reading a map your entire life. You use it every day.
Okay.
But what if every time you saw the symbol for mountain, it actually meant ocean? And every time you read the word city, it really meant corporate headquarters.
That's a terrifying thought. You'd be completely lost, but you wouldn't even know why you were lost.
Exactly. You just keep crashing into things, operating on a totally false reality.
Right.
Now, take that exact feeling, that vertigo of realizing your map is fundamentally wrong, and apply it to history, theology, and geography all at once.
That's a huge leap.
It is. Because what if I told you that synonyms, words we all think mean basically the same thing, don't actually exist in the Quran?
Not at all.
Not a single one. That village and city aren't just, poetic choices, but distinct legal and administrative terms with massive implications.
Sounds like we're about to rewrite the dictionary.
We're doing a lot more than that today. We're looking at a complete linguistic reconstruction of the world.
Yeah, and this all comes from one specific source material?
It does. This is based entirely on the work of Dr. Khaled Waleed from the Almighty Covenant channel. And let me tell you, having gone through this is not your standard history lesson.
No.
This is a system reset.
It really is. And I think it's crucial to frame this correctly right from the start. We are not looking at traditional history books. We're not looking at archaeological consensus. We are definitely not looking at modern political maps.
Right.
We are strictly analyzing the internal logic of Dr. Waleed's linguistic reconstruction. He treats the text like a technical manual.
Precise, unchangeable, engineered. That's the vibe I got.
Completely. And his whole project has these two huge pillars he calls divine geography and divine anthropology.
And that's our mission today. We are going to unpack this. First, we'll look at the claim that Baka, the holy sanctuary, is actually Jerusalem, not Mecca.
That's the first bomb drop right there.
It is. Then we're going to decode the identity of Israel as a single man, totally separate from any nation state.
A proper noun.
A
name.
Just a name. And then, and this is the part that, I'm not kidding, it kept me up last night, we're going to dive into a timeline of human origins that separates insan from Bashar.
It is a heavy list. And just a quick disclaimer for everyone listening to this.
Please.
Our goal here is to report on the logic we found within Dr. Waleed's work and to do it impartially. These are very provocative ideas. They challenge narratives people have held for centuries.
Deeply held narratives.
Deeply. So we're here to explore the architecture of his argument, not to validate it as absolute truth or, take any sides in any current conflict.
Absolutely. We are the explorers here. Dr. Waleed is the map maker. So let's open up this map. First stop, geography.
Okay.
And it all starts with this idea Dr. Waleed calls the rule of synonyms, or I guess the total lack of them.
This is the foundation of the entire theory. If you don't get this part, nothing else that follows will make sense.
So what is it?
The core premise is that in the Quran, no two words share the exact same function or location. If the text uses a different word, it means a different thing, period.
So there's no poetry for the sake of poetry. You can't just swap town for city because it, fits the rhyme scheme better.
Precisely. It's engineering, not poetry. Think of it like a legal document. You don't just swap contract for agreement because it sounds nicer. They have different legal weights.
Okay, that makes sense. A legal document. So he applies this to place names.
To everything, but especially to the administrative layers. The source material breaks down 4 distinct terms: Balad, Balda, Medina, and Korea.
Okay, let's unpack these. Because in English, if I say I'm going to the town or I'm going to the city, I probably mean the same thing, a place with buildings and people.
Right. You'd use them interchangeably.
Yeah.
But Dr. Waleed says, no way. These are different legal zones with different functions.
So let's start at the top. The Balad. What is that?
The Balad in this framework is the sovereign land. It's a central, protected, sacred region. And the source notes something fascinating linguistically. The word balad is never, ever pluralized in the text.
It's always singular. You can't have multiple balads.
Never. There is only one balad, and it's inextricably linked to divine oaths. When God swears by something, he swears by the balad.
Which gives it this immense weight.
Immense. It implies sovereignty, supreme authority, and permanence. So don't think of the balad as a city. Think of it as the state or the sovereign soil itself. The ground zero of divine authority.
Okay, so Balad is the big one. The holy sovereign territory. The soil itself. What about Balda? It sounds almost identical.
It does. It's just one letter difference, but the function is totally different. The Balda is described as the financial center.
It's a financial center.
Yes. It's a specific spot defined by its commercial and economic centrality. And crucially, Its boundaries can change. They can shrink or grow depending on the economy.
So Balad is the fixed earth, the permanent sovereign territory. Balda is what? Wall Street?
That is a fantastic analogy. The Balad is Washington, D.C., the seat of government. The Balda is New York City, the hub of finance. One is defined by law and sovereignty. The other is defined by money and trade.
And one is permanent, the other fluctuates with the market.
You've got it. That distinction is the key.
Okay, I'm with you. Sovereign land versus financial hub. What's next? Medina. We usually translate that one as city.
And that translation is pretty good. But Dr. Waleed adds a very specific nuance. The Medina is the diverse administrative urban entity.
What does that mean, administrative?
It means it's where the nuts and bolts of society happen. The source highlights that a Medina has gates, it has laws, it has police, it has movement, and this is crucial. It has a mix of different kinds of people. It's not homogenous.
Like a modern metropolis.
Right.
A London or a Tokyo. A
Yes,
melting pot.
Exactly. It's the functioning, diverse day-to-day city. And finally, you have the Qaria.
The village. That sounds, peaceful.
You would think so. But in Dr. Waleed's analysis, it's actually a much darker concept.
How so?
A Qaria is a smaller, homogeneous unit. It's closed off.
Right.
And almost every time it appears in the text, the Qaria is associated with destruction or punishment.
Wait, really? So it's not a quaint little village?
No, it's an echo chamber. A community that is so homogeneous and so closed off to new ideas or warnings that it basically dooms itself. It's a place of stubborn disbelief that refuses to change.
An echo chamber that usually gets crushed.
That's the pattern the source identifies.
Yeah.
So we have this very clear hierarchy. Balad is the sovereign land. Balda is the financial center. Medina is the administrative city. And Qaria is the doomed homogeneous village.
Okay, I get the definitions. The blueprint is laid out. Now,
Right.
here is where Dr. Waleed takes these definitions and uses them to literally move a mountain.
Or to correctly identify which mountain we should have been looking at all along.
Right. We have to talk about Makkah and Baka.
This is the most controversial pivot in the entire theory. For over 1,000 years, the overwhelming consensus is that Baka is just another ancient name for Mecca, a synonym.
But according to Dr. Waleed's first rule,
There are no synonyms.
so they can't be the same place.
Exactly. If there are different words, they must be different places, or at the very least, places with fundamentally different functions.
So what's the function of Baka, according to him?
The source argues that Baka is the divine name for the center of the Balad, the heart of that sovereign land we just defined.
The sacred, permanent, holy soil.
Yes. And Dr. Waleed then lists a specific set of geographic conditions that Baka must meet according to the text, and he claims Mecca simply does not possess them.
Okay, hold on. This is a massive claim. You're saying he argues the described geography in the scripture doesn't match the actual geography of Mecca.
That is his argument.
What are these conditions? What's he looking for?
He lists several, and they're very specific. First, Baka must be located within a Balad, that sovereign territory defined by divine oaths. Second, it requires significant mountainous elevation. We're talking high altitude.
Okay, high up. What else?
Third, it needs a holy valley nearby. And fourth, it must have an explicit eastern and western side, a kind of a geographic duality that's mentioned in relation to it.
And his argument is that Mecca lacks these things. I mean, Mecca's known for being in a valley surrounded by mountains, right?
Right, but it's in a valley. It's not at a high elevation itself. His argument is that Mecca fits the description of a low-lying commercial hub, but not the high-altitude sovereign topography he believes the text demands for the Balad.
So, if it's not Mecca, then where is Baka?
Dr. Waleed's conclusion, based on his strict reading of the topography described in the text, is that these descriptions perfectly match Jerusalem, outwards.
Wait, just stop for a second. Baka is Jerusalem.
In this reconstruction, yes. He argues that Jerusalem fits all the criteria. It fits the sovereign land concept, it's at a high elevation, it has required valleys, and it has the specific eastern and western orientation he points to in the source.
My mind is spinning. But, okay, if Baka is Jerusalem, then what is Makkah? It's mentioned by name. It has to be somewhere.
It is. And this is where the distinction between Balad, sovereign, and Balda, financial, becomes the absolute key that unlocks the whole theory.
Okay.
The source describes Makkah not as the holy sanctuary itself, but as the Balda,
The financial center.
the financial center, the commercial hub we defined earlier.
So Makkah is the market.
Exactly. Dr. Waleed suggests Makkah is the commercial engine inside the broader territory, but it is functionally and geographically distinct from the holy sanctuary of Baka.
So let me see if I have this straight. He's proposing a kind of ancient separation of church and state, but geographically. You have the holy sanctuary, the place of worship and sovereignty, which is Baka, located in Jerusalem.
Right.
And then you have the trading hub, the economic engine, which is Makkah, located elsewhere.
He argues this solves the synonym problem perfectly. If Baka and Makkah are the same place, the text is being redundant and geographically inaccurate. But if they are two different places with two different functions, sanctuary versus market, then the text is being incredibly precise.
Precision, that's the watchword here, isn't it?
It's everything.
But I have to ask the obvious question. If this is true, how did an entire civilization get it mixed up? How do billions of people today map Baka to Mecca?
Dr. Waleed would argue it's because we lost the technical definitions. We stopped reading the text like an engineering blueprint. We started treating Balad and Balda as if they were the same word.
We lost the linguistic precision.
And once you lose the linguistic precision, the geography starts to blur. You start overlaying the holy map onto the financial map until they just merge into one location in people's minds over centuries.
Oh, yeah. That's dizzying. It's like finding out that in the history books, New York and Washington, D.C. were mistakenly recorded as the same city, when in reality they always serve two completely different functions.
That's a very, very apt comparison.
Okay, so we've shifted the geography, we've moved the sanctuary, but Dr. Waleed doesn't stop at maps. He goes after names.
Yes, he does.
And there is one name in particular that carries more weight in the modern world than almost any other: Israel.
This next section requires very careful attention to grammar. And again, just as a reminder, we're putting aside all modern politics to look strictly at ancient syntax. Dr. Waleed points out something that is easily verifiable in the text, but often completely overlooked. The word Israel appears in the Quran 43 times.
Okay, 43.
And in every single one of those 43 instances, it functions as a singular proper noun.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning it is the name of a specific man. Period.
Just one guy.
One specific guy. The source emphasizes that Israel is never used as an adjective. You never see the phrase the Israeli land or an Israeli person. It's never used as the plural. You don't see the Israelis, and it's never used as a location. There is no land of Israel mentioned.
So according to Dr. Waleed's analysis, anytime you see the word Israel in the Quran, you should just picture a dude, a single person.
A very specific historical individual, but yes, a man. And Bani Israel, which is a phrase that appears all the time, is usually translated as children of Israel. Dr. Waleed says that translation is correct, but it must be understood literally.
As in his direct biological descendants.
Strictly his biological descendants. Not a nation in the modern sense, not a state, not a cultural identity, but a specific bloodline, a lineage.
He has a name for this rule, doesn't he? Something like the law of the one name?
Yes. And he connects it to a verse where God says, "We granted him a name not given to anyone before." The traditional view is that this refers to John the Baptist. Dr. Waleed argues it actually applies to the name Israel.
That the name Israel is a unique, one-off divine designation.
Like a divine copyright.
A trademark.
Exactly. Copyrighted by God.
Yeah.
The argument is that this name was given to one man and one man only. It cannot be transferred to a state, a people, or a geography.
So any political use of the word Israel to describe a state or a national identity is, according to this linguistic analysis, a corruption.
A fundamental linguistic corruption. It's taking a name that was reserved for a specific historical individual and pasting it onto a modern map.
That's a huge distinction. But it brings up another question for me. If Israel is just one man, and Bani Israel are just his kids, who are the Jews, or those who are Jewish, who are also mentioned in the text, we tend to use all those terms interchangeably. Israel, Israeli, Jewish, Hebrew.
And Dr. Waleed would say, stop doing that. Immediately.
Because they're not synonyms.
Never synonyms. The source material separates them very sharply. Israel is the man. Bani Israel is the biological lineage from that man. Al-Yahud, the Jews, is presented as a title or a religious grouping, something you can join or leave. And Alathina Hadu, those who follow the Jewish faith, is a behavioral description.
So they are completely different categories.
4 distinct categories. The source argues that mixing them up, conflating the bloodline of one man with a modern political state or a broad religious group, is the primary source of historical and theological confusion. He is effectively trying to decouple the biology from the politics.
It's fascinating how stripping away all the modern context and just looking at the grammar completely changes the entire picture.
It does.
But if you think that redefinition is wild, we now have to talk about the biggest redefinition of all.
I know where you're going.
We have to talk about the definition of the human.
Ah, yes. Anthropology 101, Dr. Waleed style.
This was my aha moment reading the source material. Actually, it was more of a wait, what moment?
I think everyone has that reaction.
We're all taught that Adam was the first human. Case closed. Sunday school is over. But Dr. Waleed comes along and says, actually, no. Adam was not the first biological human on Earth.
Right. And here come the definitions again. The claim is that Adam was the first bashar, but he was not the first insan.
Okay, stop right there. We need to define those two terms immediately, because in English, I'd probably translate both of them as human or mortal or man. What is the difference in this framework?
The difference is everything.
Yeah.
And the clue Dr. Waleed says is in that famous scene where the angels question God about the creation of Adam.
Right. God says he's placing a successor, a Khalifa, on Earth. And the angels ask, will you place therein one who spreads corruption and sheds blood?
Exactly. And the big question has always been, how did the angels know that? How did they know this new creation would be violent? Were they just guessing? Did they have a crystal ball?
I always just assumed they were, making an educated guess based on the concept of free will.
That's the traditional interpretation, Dr. Waleed says. No, they weren't guessing about the future. They were describing the past.
What?
They'd seen it before. They had seen insan.
So insan was already on Earth, shedding blood.
That is the core of the argument. The source defines insan as a biological species that existed before Adam. And the characteristics of this pre-Adamic insan were, to put it mildly, not great.
Corrupt and bloodshedding.
Corrupt, bloodshedding, anxious, ungrateful, hasty. Dr. Waleed points out that almost every single time the word insan is used in the text, it's in a critical context. Verily, insan is ungrateful. Insan is created of haste. Insan is ever anxious.
So insan is like the hardware, the biological chassis of a human being. But the operating system is buggy. It's prone to violence and panic.
That is a perfect analogy. Insan is the hardware. A biological entity, fully formed, bipedal, walking the earth, but morally chaotic.
Okay, so that's insan. Then what is bashar?
Bashar is the upgrade. Adam is the first bashar.
Version 2.0.
Version 2.0. The bashar upgrade, according to the source, involves two key things. First is taswiya, which means being fashioned or balanced or perfected. And the second, which is the most important part, is having the spirit, the ruh, blown into them.
So Adam isn't the first bipedal primate on the planet. He's the first one with a conscience, the first one with spiritual responsibility.
That's it. Adam is the point where this biological hardware, the insan, gets a divine software update. He becomes morally accountable.
And the source connects this to the scientific record.
It does. This is where Dr. Waleed attempts to bridge the gap between science and scripture. We know from the fossil record that Homo sapiens, biologically modern humans, have been around for roughly 300,000 years. We have the skulls, we have the bones.
Right, but civilization, writing, farming, complex moral codes, all of that is much, much more recent.
Exactly. The moral responsibility, what the text calls taklif, seems to switch on much later. The source suggests a time frame of maybe 12,000 years ago.
So Dr. Waleed suggests that the insan is the creature from that long 300,000-year stretch of biological existence. That's the fossils. That's the hunter-gatherers shedding blood, which the angels saw.
And Adam, the bashar, represents the specific recent moment of spiritual elevation, the moment the ruh was introduced into the timeline.
That reconciles a huge conflict for a lot of people, doesn't it? You don't have to deny that fossils exist. You just classify them as insan, not bashar.
Correct. It frames the creation of Adam not as God molding clay into flesh for the very first time, but as the introduction of a new divine program into an existing and somewhat flawed biological frame.
Okay, so we have insan, the corrupt, ancient biological human, and bashar, the upgraded, spiritual, responsible human.
But this gets darker.
It does.
Because if the insan, this corrupt, bloodshedding version, existed before Adam, did they just vanish when Adam arrived, or are they still around? That is the pivotal question. And the answer brings us to what Dr. Waleed calls the grand unification theory in his work.
This is where it all comes together.
This is where Section 1 on geography, Section 2 on Israel, and Section 3 on anthropology all crash into each other. And it involves Israel and two very ominous names, Gog and Magog.
I've definitely heard of Gog and Magog. Usually they're described as these apocalyptic monsters trapped behind a giant wall who are going to come out at the end of time and just destroy everything.
That's the common story. Dr. Waleed takes a very different and I would say far more radical approach. He uses a system of binary pairs or cosmic counterparts.
What does that mean?
He argues that just as Adam is the archetype of the Bashar, the new spiritual line Israel, the man, is the archetype of the pre-Adamic insan.
Wait, I need you to say that again slowly. He's saying that Israel, the man, represents the original pre-Adam corruption.
In this reconstruction, yes, that is the claim, and it gets more specific. The source posits that Gog and Magog, Yajuj and Majuj in the Arabic, are not literal monsters or zombies behind a wall.
Then who are they?
They are the ancestors. They are the archetypal lineage of Israel. They represent the sheer, unbridled corruption of the insan species before the spiritual refinement of Adam was introduced.
So Gog and Magog are the insan population, the one the angels were so terrified of. They're the pre-Adamites.
Precisely. They are the original state of chaos. They are the primeval bloodshed. And Bani Israel, in this specific theological framework, are described as the genetic or spiritual echo of Gog and Magog that appears after Adam.
That is incredibly heavy. You're saying the source claims that the lineage of Bani Israel carries the code or the program of that pre-Adamic corruption.
That is the claim, that they carry the programming for bloodshed and spreading corruption on earth. And the source directly connects this idea to the Quranic prophecy that states Bani Israel would cause corruption on the earth twice.
Twice. I've heard that.
Yeah.
But how does this timeline explain the twice?
Dr. Waleed interprets twice in a strict chronological sense, spanning all of history. The first corruption was pre-Adam. That was the era of Gog and Magog, the insan, spreading bloodshed across the planet. That was the first time that corrupt program ran.
And the second time?
The second corruption is post-Adam. It's the reemergence of that same behavior, that same program, through the lineage of Bani Israel.
It implies that history isn't linear, it's a loop, or a struggle. We are dealing with an ancient biological conflict between the insan impulse, the Gog and Magog impulse for violence and chaos, and the Bashar impulse for spirit and responsibility.
And that very struggle, Dr. Waleed believes, is what the story of the forbidden tree is actually about.
Oh, right, the apple, or the fig, or whatever fruit people think it was.
Right, but Dr. Waleed says, put down the fruit basket. It's not about food.
It's not about an apple.
Think about it. Does it make sense that God would curse all of humanity for thousands of years over a snack? In this analysis, the tree Adam was told to avoid was not a plant. It was a lineage tree, a genealogy.
A family tree? We even use that exact phrase in English.
Exactly. The divine command to Adam was, do not approach this tree. Dr. Waleed interprets this to mean, do not interbreed. Do not mix with the corrupted pre-Adamic lineage.
Don't mix with the insan. Don't mix your new upgraded Bashar DNA with the old corrupted Gog and Magog line.
That's the argument. The source explains that in Quranic symbolic language, the verb to eat from something often means to incorporate it, to mix with it, or to adopt its methodology. So Adam's fall wasn't about eating a piece of fruit. It was about losing the purity of that new spiritual program, the ruby mixing with the bad tree.
So Adam, the first Bashar, was supposed to remain separate, to exist in a kind of divine quarantine.
Divine quarantine is a perfect way to describe it. He was meant to maintain the integrity of the Bashar upgrade. By mixing, he effectively reintroduced the insan virus back into the new system.
This all leads to what Dr. Waleed calls the taxonomy of souls, right? He actually divides humanity into different groups based on this tree logic.
Yes, and this is another area where linguistic precision is absolutely vital. He identifies four main groups. The first is the Arabs, al-Arab, and he defines them as the good tree.
And when he says Arab, is he talking about a modern nationality, like someone from Saudi Arabia or Egypt?
Absolutely not. This is not about modern nation states or passports.
Yeah.
Dr. Waleed defines Arab here based on its linguistic root. The root of Arab implies the rooted, the clear, the stable, the expressive.
Okay, so it's a characteristic, not a nationality.
It's a state of being. In this construct, the Arabs represent the pure Bashar line, the ones who held on to their rootedness, and the bayan, which means clarity of speech and purpose.
And the bad tree, the corrupted lineage.
That's the line associated with Yajuj, Gog, and Majuj, Magog. The source defines Gog as representing the state of kuf, which is active disbelief and chaos. And Magog represents the state of shirk, polytheism, and, again, bloodshed. These are the pure, unmixed corruption.
But there's a group in the middle, isn't there? The Bedouins.
Yes. El-Arab, the Bedouins. And this is where many people get confused because in modern English, we tend to think Arab and Bedouin are part of the same culture. But the Quran distinguishes them very sharply.
How so? What is the distinction here?
The source describes the Arab, Bedouins, as the unstable tree, a hybrid state. Linguistically, the root of Arab implies being mobile, shifting, unrooted.
Okay.
Dr. Waleed describes them as oscillating between belief and disbelief. They are, in his view, genetically or spiritually mixed. They lack the rooted stability of the Arabs, but they aren't fully corrupted like the pure Gog and Magog line. They're in between.
It's fascinating because, as you say, we usually conflate Arab and Bedouin, but in this system, they are practically opposites. One is rooted stability, the good tree. The other is chaotic instability, the mixed tree.
And that distinction is crucial to Dr. Waleed's final concept of the divine balance, or the mizan. He stresses that this separation of groups is not about human racism. It's not about skin color or language in the modern sense at all.
So what is it about?
It's about a cosmic balance, a kind of spiritual ecology. The idea is that mixing the good tree, which carries the spirit and the divine trust, with the bad tree, which carries the pre-Adamic corruption, leads to a loss of the amana, the divine trust itself.
The trust, that's the software update we talked about, the moral responsibility that made Adam a Bashar.
Exactly. And if you mix the pure operating system of the Bashar with the ancient virus of the Insan, the entire system crashes. That is the core warning that Dr. Waleed sees woven throughout the entire text. He argues that the Quran is essentially a technical manual on how to maintain the Bashar status and avoid slipping back into the chaotic Insan state.
This completely reframes the entire idea of human history. It stops being just a story of nations fighting over borders and resources.
And it becomes what?
It becomes a story of a struggle between two different biological or spiritual lineages. One is trying to ascend and uphold the trust, and the other is trying to drag it back down into the primeval chaos.
It creates a universe of very strict, almost mathematical laws. Geography is fixed. Baka is Jerusalem. History is cyclical. The pre-Adam corruption echoes in the post-Adam world through Bani Israel. And identity is fundamentally biological and spiritual. At any given moment, you are either manifesting the qualities of the Bashar or the qualities of the Insan.
So what does this all mean for us, for you, the listener, driving to work right now? Because we have covered a lot of very abstract, very heavy concepts. We've moved Jerusalem, we've found pre-Adamic fossils, and we've identified a spiritual virus in our own code.
I think the biggest takeaway is that it challenges the precision of our own language. We live in a world where we use words very, very loosely. We call everyone human. We call land by ever-changing political names. Dr. Waleed's work suggests that if you treat a religious text like a technical manual, the specific words you use actually define your reality.
If you call a village a city, you miss the warning signs of its inherent instability and destruction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you call Insan and Bashar the same thing, you completely miss the inherent flaw in your own nature and also the potential for spiritual elevation.
And it raises a final, really provocative thought for me.
Which is?
The source suggests that the hasty, ungrateful, blood-shedding creature isn't just a monster from the fossil record. It's not just in the past. It's a part of our biological heritage that is constantly, always trying to reassert itself.
The pre-Adamite is still inside us.
That's the implication, isn't it? The struggle isn't just out there between nations or historical lineages. It's internal. It's inside every one of us.
Yes. So every time you act with haste, with anger, with ingratitude, with a desire for corruption, that is the Insan programming surfacing. And every time you act with patience, with gratitude, with balance, with responsibility, that's the Bashar. That's the Ruh, the spirit.
That is a lot to process. It turns the mirror right back on us. It stops being about pointing fingers at Gog and Magog somewhere over the hill.
And starts being about checking your own software daily.
It does. It forces you to ask, which tree are you watering? The rooted tree of stability and clarity, or the unstable, corrupted tree of the past?
A very powerful question.
Wow. Okay, we have covered some serious ground today. From the mountains of Jerusalem to the very DNA of Adam.
It's an incredibly dense and intricate theory. And again, all credit for this reconstruction goes to Dr. Khaled Waleed and his extensive work on the Almighty Covenant. It is a truly unique lens on the Quranic text.
It is definitely that. Whether you agree with the conclusions or not, you have to admit the architecture of the argument is fascinating.
It forces you to look at every single word differently.
It makes you realize that maybe, just maybe, we've been reading the map upside down this whole time.
Or reading the wrong legend entirely.
Well, we want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive. It was intense, it was technical, but hey, that's why you're here. We don't do surface level.
Indeed. Keep questioning the definitions.
And until next time, keep looking for that good tree within yourself. Thanks for listening.